The morning of our bakery's 35th anniversary, I was wearing my good navy dress and carrying a box of ribbon spools when the delivery driver stopped me at the back door. His name was Teddy. He'd been bringing us flour and sugar from the mill for going on 12 years. A quiet man, the kind who remembered your birthday but never made a fuss about it. He set down his dolly, looked over his shoulder at the kitchen window, and then leaned toward me just enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. "Miss Purr." "Harriet," he said, and he always called me that, even though I'd told him 100 times my name was just Harriet. "No Ms. required. Don't go in through the front today. Use the loading bay, and maybe don't let them know you're here yet." I almost laughed. I thought he was joking, but his face wasn't doing anything a joking face does. His jaw was set. His eyes were steady and a little sorry looking, the way a doctor's eyes look right before they say something you don't want to hear. "Teddy, what on earth? Just trust me." He picked up his dolly and walked away. I stood there in the parking lot, holding my ribbon spools for a long moment. The October air smelled like exhaust and dying leaves, and, faintly, like the cinnamon rolls that were probably cooling on the racks inside. 35 years of cinnamon rolls. 35 years of that smell greeting me every single morning. I went in through the loading bay. Let me back up, because none of this will make sense without the part that came before it. My name is Harriet Beaumont, and I have run Beaumont's Bakehouse in Clarksville, Tennessee, for 35 years. My late husband, Roger, and I opened it together in 1989 with a $10,000 loan from his mother and a secondhand Hobart mixer that made a sound like a garbage truck every time it started up. We sold biscuits and honey cake and pie by the slice. We had 4 tables and a hand-painted sign that Roger did himself, which was sweet but honestly not very good. Roger passed away 9 years ago. Heart attack, sudden. Nothing dramatic about it in the way people sometimes imagine these things. He was there on a Tuesday and gone by Wednesday morning. After that, it was just me. My son Patrick had been working in the bakery since he was tall enough to reach the counter. He knew the recipes better than I did, had ideas about expanding the menu, wanted to open a second location over on Providence Boulevard. He was good with people in a way Roger had been, and I never quite was. I'd always intended to bring him in as a partner when the time was right, but the time never seemed quite right. I told myself I was protecting him from the pressure. I told myself I needed him to learn more first. The truth, which I've had to sit with since then, is that the bakery was the last thing Roger and I had built together, and letting go of any piece of it felt like letting Roger go too. So I held on tighter than I should have, and Patrick, patient, good-natured Patrick, let me. About 6 years ago, I promoted a man named Chester Adley to be my general manager. Chester had come to us from a restaurant group over in Nashville, and he had credentials, food service management degree, experience with multi-unit operations, the whole thing. He was polished in a way I wasn't, could talk to vendors and landlords and bank people in their own language. He understood spreadsheets in a way that had always made my eyes go funny. Within a year, I had handed him nearly everything financial: payroll, vendor contracts, the business accounts, the lease negotiations. I told myself it was smart delegation. I told myself I was finally learning to let go. Chester never gave me a reason to doubt him. He was always at the bakery when I arrived. He always had answers for my questions. The numbers he showed me showed steady growth. Last Thanksgiving, we'd had our best single-day revenue in the history of the business. Chester had smiled when he told me that, leaning back in his chair, looking pleased with himself in the way that I had started to think of as just Chester being Chester. The anniversary party was his idea. A proper celebration, he said. 35 years deserve more than a sign in the window. He'd organized everything, the catering, an irony I didn't appreciate until later, the invited guests, the local press, the little ceremony where I was supposed to cut a ribbon and give a short speech. He'd even arranged for a photographer. I'd been looking forward to it for months. I came in through the loading bay, down the narrow hall past the walk-in cooler, and I could hear voices from the front of the shop. That wasn't strange. The staff would have been there since 4 in the morning, getting ready. But something about the tone of the voices made me slow down. Not arguing exactly. more like the low, careful kind of talking people do when they think they're alone. I stopped outside the door to Chester's office, his voice and someone else's. A man I didn't recognize at first, lower register, clipped, businesslike. The audit will hit the accounts Friday, the other voice said. You need to have the transfer completed by Thursday night. Both accounts, Chester, not one. I know, Chester, impatient. I've been managing this for 2 years. I don't need you to. You've been skimming, not managing. There's a difference. What you've done here goes well beyond skimming. A pause. She'll never see it in time, Chester said. She barely looks at the statements. I could show her a grocery receipt and she'd nod along. I put my hand on the wall. My face went cold. The LLC is ready? Chester asked. Filed last month. Once the transfer clears, Adley's provisions will look like a legitimate vendor. The contract is backdated. It'll look like she authorized it. And the lease? The renewal goes to the new entity automatically if she doesn't countersign by the 15th. That's 4 days. A long pause, the sound of a chair. I pressed myself back against the wall, barely breathing. What about the son? The other voice asked. Patrick? Chester almost laughed. She keeps him out of the loop herself. I don't have to do a thing. I don't know how long I stood in that hallway, long enough for my legs to go strange under me. Long enough for the cinnamon rolls to stop smelling like something good and start smelling like something I might never get back. 35 years. 2 years, Chester had said. He'd been doing this for 2 years, while I was nodding along at the statements, while I was proud of our best Thanksgiving ever, money that had probably been running through his shell company the whole time. I thought about Roger, about his mother's $10,000, about the Hobart mixer that sounded like a garbage truck. Then I thought about Patrick, who had given me 12 years of his life, who still called me every Sunday morning, who had wanted nothing but to share this with me, and whom I had quietly, consistently shut out of his own inheritance. And something in me got very, very quiet. Not scared, not even angry yet, just certain. I walked back out through the loading bay, around to my car, and I called Patrick. He picked up on the second ring. Mom, aren't you at the bakery? I need you to come here, I said. Not through the front. Loading bay, and bring your wife. A pause. What's wrong? A lot, I said. I'll tell you when you get here. And Patrick, don't call anyone to say you're coming. Don't text anyone on staff, just come. My daughter-in-law's name is Agatha, and I want to be honest about the fact that I had not always been as warm to her as she deserved. She was a contracts attorney, sharp and precise, and I had sometimes mistaken her directness for coldness. I had also, if I'm being fully honest, resented her a little for how easily she understood the parts of business that still confused me. It felt like a comparison I was always losing. When they arrived through the loading bay, I told them everything I'd heard, all of it, without softening any part of it. Patrick went very still. His jaw worked the way his father's used to when he was trying not to show how much something hurt. Agatha did not go still at all. She pulled out her phone and started making notes. How long ago was the lease renewal deadline? 4 days, you said. 4 days. And the transfer was supposed to happen Thursday night. That's what he said. Okay. She looked at Patrick. Do you still have that contact at the SBA office? He nodded slowly. Good. And Mom? It was the first time she had ever called me that, just slipped out so naturally that I almost missed it. I need you to not go into that party today. Can you do that? I need you to act like you're sick and go home and let Chester run his event and not give him any reason to move that timeline up. And then what? And then she said, we have 72 hours. What followed was the longest 3 days of my life since Roger died. Agatha worked the phones from Patrick's kitchen table while I sat on their couch and tried to be useful by making sandwiches no one ate. She called a forensic accountant she knew through her firm. She called the Tennessee Secretary of State's office about the LLC filing. She got in touch with a business fraud attorney whose number she seemed to have memorized, which told me something about the kind of law she practiced. Patrick went through every document he could access, utility bills, delivery records, copies of statements I'd forwarded to him over the years without thinking anything of them. He was quiet the whole time, focused. He found 3 separate accounts I hadn't known existed, all opened in a variation of the bakery's name, all flowing through a vendor code I'd never authorized. "Mom," he said at one point, sitting across from me with a printout in his hand, "did you ever sign a contract with a company called ACB Food Solutions?" "No." He showed me the paper. My signature on a contract dated 14 months ago. It wasn't my signature, it was close, but it wasn't mine. On Thursday morning, Agatha drove me to the Franklin County DA's office, where we met with an investigator named Wills who had the kind of face that showed nothing and missed nothing either. He went through the documents for 40 minutes without speaking, except to ask clarifying questions. Then he made a call. They picked Chester up at the bakery that afternoon. I wasn't there for it. Agatha had advised me strongly against being there, and I'd listened. I was at Patrick and Agatha's house, sitting in their backyard in an aluminum lawn chair, watching their beagle chase squirrels he had no intention of catching, when Patrick's phone buzzed. He read the message, looked up at me, and nodded once. I put my face in my hands, not because I was sad exactly. I don't think I cried for Chester. I cried for the version of myself that had stood in that hallway and understood in a single cold moment how thoroughly I'd been fooled. I cried for the 2 years I'd been proud of, numbers that were, in part, being stolen from me. I cried because Roger would have caught it years earlier and I hadn't, and I still wasn't entirely sure how to forgive myself for that. Patrick came and sat on the grass next to my chair and didn't say anything. He just put his hand on my knee the way he used to do when he was small, when something had scared him and he wanted to be close. I put my hand over his. The criminal investigation is still ongoing. Chester's attorney is contesting several of the charges, which is apparently standard. The forensic accountant estimates we lost somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 over 26 months. Money siphoned through fake vendor payments, inflated supply orders, and at least one lease-adjacent transaction I still don't fully understand. The lease itself was caught in time. Agatha handled that countersignature herself, standing over me at the kitchen table at 11:40 on a Tuesday night, checking the time on her phone every few minutes until the filing went through. The LLC Chester had registered Adley's Provisions was dissolved by order of the state within a week. I have a new general manager now. Her name is Priscilla, and she came recommended by the forensic accountant, which tells you everything you need to know about how I'm making hiring decisions going forward. She's meticulous, patient with my questions, and has the particular quality I now look for above almost anything else. She explains things to me without making me feel like I should already know them. More importantly, I finally made Patrick a co-owner. We sat down with Agatha and a business attorney 3 weeks after Chester's arrest and restructured the whole thing. Equal partnership, joint signing authority on every account, shared decision-making. Patrick cried a little, which he would hate me for mentioning, but which I think matters. He'd waited a long time for something he should have had years earlier. His idea about the second location on Providence Boulevard, we're looking at the space next month. I think about Teddy sometimes. I went and found him about a week after everything settled, drove out to the distribution warehouse and asked to see him. He was surprised, I think, maybe a little nervous. I thanked him, and he shrugged in that way of his, and said he'd noticed the man with Chester going in and out of the office for months, always right before delivery day, always carrying a laptop and leaving with a folder. Something felt wrong about it, he said. He didn't know what exactly, just wrong. I almost didn't say anything, he told me. I figured it wasn't my business. I'm glad you did, I said. He shrugged again. I've been bringing your flour for 12 years. Seems like the least I could do. I gave him a Beaumont's gift card and a whole lemon icebox pie, which he seemed genuinely more touched by than anything I'd said. What I keep coming back to isn't the money. Those $60,000 to $80,000 is not nothing when you're a single woman running a business on her own. It isn't even Chester really, or the betrayal of it, though that sat in my chest like a stone for a long time. What I keep coming back to is the line he said in that office. She keeps him out of the loop herself. I don't have to do a thing. He was right. That's the part I can't get around. He exploited something real, a real gap, a real blind spot I had made myself. Patrick hadn't been shut out by Chester. He'd been shut out by me, and my grief, and my inability to separate the bakery from the man I'd lost when I lost Roger. Chester had simply walked through a door I'd left wide open. I don't say that to be hard on myself. I say it because I think it's the only part of this story that's actually mine to own. Agatha called me last Sunday. She does that now, calls on Sunday mornings, usually while Patrick is at his run. We talk about the bakery and sometimes about other things. A book she's reading, a neighborhood thing, her mother's health. Small things. The kind of small things you share with family. I hadn't realized, until very recently, how much I'd been missing that. The 35th anniversary party never happened, obviously. Chester's event got quietly canceled, the caterers were refunded, the photographer rescheduled to something else. But Patrick suggested we do something smaller in the spring, just staff and their families, maybe some longtime regulars, nothing fancy. I told him yes. I told him he could plan it, and I meant it this time. I really genuinely meant it. I kept the bakery. I kept the legacy. But more than that, I finally understood that a legacy isn't something you hold. It's something you hand forward carefully to the people who have been waiting all along to carry it with you. Roger would have understood that from the beginning. I got there a little late, but I got there.